Guys, we need to have a real talk about the United Kingdom. I know many individuals claim that somehow I'm just really negative because I don't know, maybe I can't go there. Like I've got British citizenship. I can go there whenever I want. I've got business interests in the UK. I can go there probably more freely than the majority of my audience. So I'm not saying this from a position of hate. I'm saying this from a position of interest. And it is actually really important that we have this conversation. Why? Because the United Kingdom is the number one area that most South Africans choose to immigrate to when they immigrate. But what we are now seeing is that the United Kingdom is being governed through a lens of Pakistani Islamic political interests who have embedded themselves into the government, policing, institutions, and the national culture. And we're going to have a look at what that actually means for the United Kingdom. But before we do, can I yet again remind you, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. It really does help. So let's move on to the first news story. And this is the news story around the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmud, because there's now what they're classing as a visa scandal. Now, Mahmud threatened to ban visas from 3 majority Christian countries, and all of you will be aware of these countries. The first is Angola, with 90% Christians, Namibia, with 90% Christian, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, with 95% Christians. Now, the reason she did this is she says that if these countries are unwilling to take back their illegal immigrants, she will ban visas from those locations. But this is absurd because they barely contribute to illegal channel crossing. We only have 4 Angolans who have arrived illegally in the last quarter. Now contrast that to the real culprits, because these real culprits haven't been touched at all. In fact, they don't get mentioned. And right at the top of the list is Pakistan. Second is Bangladesh, Afghanistan, Iran, and then Syria. So the overwhelming majority of illegal immigrants to the United Kingdom are from Muslim majority, with Pakistani the largest single contributor. From overwhelming Muslim majority countries, with Pakistan being the largest single contributor. Now, if Britain actually sends Pakistan 133 million in foreign aid every single year, and in return, Pakistan sends England an even larger flow of asylum seekers, and they refuse to take them back when they get here illegally. Now, commentators are saying that Mahmud is clearly acting through a religious or ethnic loyalty lens and not in a national interest lens. Now, this is important to understand because she herself, Mahmud, has said she views everything she does in her life through an Islamic lens. She says that her belief in Islam is more important than anything, and that will always come first. And this is leading some individuals to suggest that the UK immigration system now appears to be captured by Pakistani political interests. Because what we are seeing is that the majority of immigration is coming from Muslim majority states, especially Pakistan. So what exactly are the individuals contributing to the United Kingdom? Well, Rupert Lowe wrote a letter to Parliament highlighting a whistleblower who exposed a criminal network who's helping migrants in the United Kingdom. Specifically, they're helping them with the Life in the UK tests. So that's the test you're required to do in order to get citizenship. They're helping them with driving theory tests and practical driving tests. Imposters effectively go and sit on behalf of the migrants these tests for cash. The migrants don't actually have to learn a thing. Now, according to Rupert Lowe, the DVSA's ID checks are so weak that fake candidates routinely get licenses. And that's because if you look in many of these Islamic countries, and I know from my time working in the United Kingdom, I could see it myself, individuals will come in with the name Mohammed Hussein. Mohammed Hussein, the entire family is called Mohammed Hussein. And what ends up happening is that sometimes they call themselves Hussein Mohammed, Mohammed Hussein, and they don't really know. Most people don't know, and they don't want to cause offense, so they don't challenge it. They see it, they go, okay, fine, it must be okay, and off they go. Now, over 1.3 million foreign drivers in the UK hold UK licenses despite never taking a domestic test since 2016. And a lot of this is being blamed on infiltration into the systems by the very people who should be protecting it. Now, the whistleblower tried to escalate this, and management shut down the investigation because they don't want to be classed as racist. And we've seen this before, specifically in terms of the grooming gangs. They said that there's no immigration nexus, even when the suspect is a migrant. So they just buried the case. What that effectively means is they're saying, no, there's nobody here infiltrating this. There's nobody here who's helping migrants, even when the person who's saying that is a migrant themselves, who is in charge of overseeing their system. It's incredibly insidious. So what this shows you is that Britain itself cannot control who enters the country, can't control who stays in the country, and they can't control who grants rights and who's on the road. And fraud is flourishing in the UK because enforcement is politically untouchable, because to go in there and tackle it will be racist. So what this shows you is that migrant communities linked to Labour's support base are infiltrating the country, like the Home Secretary from a Pakistani base, who's the Labour Home Secretary. So what is this actually leading to? Well, a very interesting case has occurred in the last few days, and that is the TV personality Ryan Williams. You'll know him because he was on Sky News with bacon on his shoulders saying that it was his anti-rape jacket. I mean, he got cancelled from Sky News for that. But anyway, he came to the UK and he was arrested under terrorism legislation for mocking Islam. His phones were seized and passwords were demanded. And this is all at a time where pro-Hamas slogans are in the streets. And these guys can call for jihad, killing of Jews, killing of individuals, slaughtering of white people, overtaking the country. No consequences whatsoever. Ryan Williams, arrested at Heathrow. In fact, you can actually watch his comments on this right here.
They let you out?
Yeah, but look. Terrorism, Schedule 7.
But what did you actually do for them to suspect that?
They said it was my social media posts.
There's only one culture that pours acid on women's faces.
So, yeah,
Against mass migration and Islam?
Exactly.
Leave the goats alone.
So I had to give them all my passwords for my phone, all my passwords for my social media, all my laptop. They've taken all my phones, laptop, everything, banking, everything. I was saying the truth that Prophet Muhammad slept with a 9-year-old and married a 6-year-old, which makes him a pedophile. So that's what I was saying. And now I'm getting investigated for terrorism. This is way worse than I could ever have thought. I thought I'd just be a normal criminal, like being done for hate speech, but I don't want to get done for being a terrorist. That's something different. So
I mean, the consequences are more severe.
yeah, well, if I go to jail for being a terrorist, that's a lot worse than just hate speech.
Now, I say young men. What I really mean is individuals who don't have 400 years worth of British history. They're migrants to the United Kingdom. Now, those individuals are roaming the streets with knives, causing London to be the capital of Europe now in terms of stabbings and death by stabbings. Now, police have arrested a Christian preacher in London for being too loud. So yes, you're in a Christian country, in a capital city filled with migrants, many of them from Islamist type backgrounds, and you're preaching Christianity in a Christian country, and a guy's been arrested for it because he was too loud.
I know you guys come out here to preach, and that's no problem at all. The reason we've been called is we've got a report just saying that the volume of it was a bit loud and it was distressing some of the people on the high street. So we've just been asked to come out and remind you guys to be mindful of the volume.
I don't want to speak on my own behalf. These two are witnesses, they've been here the whole time. Has the volume been loud?
No.
Get them on it as well. Has it been loud?
No.
I think the issue that was raised was there was a couple of words that were mentioned, like suicide and the devil, and they said this was distressing some children that were around. So I think that was the main issue why they called us. And we just wanted to come and make sure everything was all okay. That's why we're here.
Well, I haven't mentioned anything about suicide. Obviously I mentioned the devil, but like I haven't mentioned anything because as they're saying.
I've been here, we've been here the whole time, and that has not been spoken about. It's obviously someone who just is not watching the gospel season.
And I totally understand that. Obviously, when we get called, we have to come out and make sure that nothing like that is happening, and obviously make sure all members of the public are okay.
I can honestly say, and this young man, he has such a gentle voice and a gentle delivery, and way of tipping over. and you know, it's been drawn to them. So, you know, I can assure you that everything is.
That's no problem. It was obviously fine as we walked up. We could see there's no issue. But all we'll do is leave them with reminders to keep the volume at an appropriate level and just be mindful of the topics. With it being so busy on the high street.
We always make sure the volume is less than the buskers.
Sorry?
We always make sure our volume is less than the buskers.
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly. That's all I'd ask you to do is just be mindful of it. And that's no problem at all.
This all whilst the call to prayer occurs on London Bridge, and you have numerous pro-Palestinian chants up and down London every single day. So policing now seems to serve Islamist sensitivities. The minority religious grievances seems to trump all forms of national identity. You can't criticize Islam because if you do, you're going to be arrested. If you're a Christian, you're going to be arrested. If you're a Jew, you're going to be arrested. You're not allowed to show any other faith in public apart from Islam. And any form of political dissent, you're going to get arrested. Now, this effectively means that we have a blasphemy law in the UK, which is enforced by the police, even though we don't have one. But the police are enforcing it, which means you effectively do, even if it's unwritten. And it seems to be targeting any individual who wants to criticize Islam. But the real extremism in the United Kingdom all comes from Islam. All the terrorist attacks in the United Kingdom were from Islamists. At the same time, the Islamist infiltration into the United Kingdom is now going further because we can't have any forms of sensitivity to challenge. We can't upset the Muslim population because they may do something really drastic. And we all don't want that, right? We don't want Islamist terrorist activities on the streets of London, even though we have those right now. In any case, to avoid being offensive, Tesco's has now replaced Christmas trees with evergreen trees. This is the thing they like to do. They take the national culture, they make it really bland, they blend over it, and then they kind of give it this veneer so that it's some bland rubbish. But ultimately, nobody likes bland rubbish. So effectively, what ends up happening is people look for an alternative. And would you know it, an alternative will be there waiting in the wings for the Islamists. Because let's be honest, once we get to Eid, we're going to see Eid decorations everywhere. We're going to see them celebrate in the streets. And Sadiq will be back to playing verses of the Quran through all of the different train stations in London, like he did last year. In any case, this is going to have a huge backlash because many individuals are feeling that Christmas is being sanitized in order to avoid offending foreigners effectively. Now, this itself means that what we're actually seeing now is we're seeing the national culture being overridden by Islam. What we're seeing is, and we've seen this in London, we are seeing spaces in London now displaying signs about praise Allah in train stations. But if you go and you have a Christmas tree and it just says Christmas tree, that's offensive. It's got to now say evergreen tree because I don't want to offend you. I can't have you being a street preacher on the side of the road because that will offend you. But if you want to talk about jihad and talk about how great Islam is, go for it. We won't offend the sensitivities of the minorities. It's really weird because with time, Brits themselves now feel like strangers in their own countries. And that's because they are. Your country has been overrun. And it's been overrun due to this idea that you don't want to upset the Muslim communities. So you've just allowed yourself to be erased. Well, with more time, you will be erased. And this form of normalization of erasure is occurring every day. How do I know this? Well, because the news reports now out are that South African Jews in the UK, so South African Jews who moved to the UK to go work in the NHS because the NHS is severely understaffed. Well, they have reported in NHS censuses that they fear for their lives after the 7th of October. Because according to them, NHS WhatsApp groups are now filled with anti-Israel abuse. Midwives and nurses are now wearing Palestinian badges, which is against NHS rules. But remember, we can't say anything against them because they're the minority. We don't want to offend the Muslims. Instead, Jewish staff are made to remove their Star of Davids, their Magen Davids, They have to remove any form of Hebrew car stickers. So if you have anything on there in Hebrew, well, that's a no-no. And any form of badges that they want to wear, showing, I don't know, a menorah or something, not allowed to wear it. Not allowed to wear it. This even goes so far as to impact Jews that are just pregnant in the NHS waiting for antenatal care. They themselves have been told to remove jewelry. They've been told to hire their own people to help them and to avoid ever mentioning Israel, religion, or travel. Doctors themselves are facing online abuse. They're being taunted with Zio baby killer chants. Colleagues themselves abruptly end calls when they learn that the individual, the doctor itself, is Jewish. Why? Well, because Islamist top priorities have overridden in the NHS. Training programs are being announced in the NHS promoting Islam. Zero consequences. Anti-Semitic staff are just kept in place. Nobody wants to offend Islam. So the NHS is now emotionally and culturally dominated by staff who treat Jews as political enemies, who treat the local national as enemies, and Islam as being the holy grail. So what do we see? Well, we see an Islamist political culture inside of British institutions, and we see a Britain that has been conquered. Britain has been conquered by Islam. The facts now speak for themselves. But you can let me know what you think of that in the comments section below. In any case, until next time, bye.